Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 48th episode of In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. My name is Keith Wojciech, Global Head of Threat Intelligence here at Kroll. This week, we are joined by George Glass, Dave Truman, Mukesh Nagar, Ryan Hicks, and of course, as always, our expert Sarah Becker on all ransomware topics, and they're all from our cyber threat intelligence team. Today is April 29th, 2024, and we'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's talk news you can use for April 29th, 2024. So CISA ransomware warning program is launching here at the end of 2024. The Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agent, also known as CISA, or agency, sorry, is CISA, intends to fully launch a ransomware warning program by the end of 2024. The program is meant to be automated vulnerability warning to organizations that are utilizing software with vulnerabilities being exploited by threat actors and ransomware groups. The program is currently running its pilot phase and will be mandated by the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act of 2022. This is some really good stuff here, especially with the move of ransomware and how the government is becoming more and more involved. So congratulations to the CISA who's actually pushing this forward. Great work for them. So Cisco discovers a targeted exploitation of ASAs. So in early 2024, the Cisco Product Security Incident Response Team became aware of attacks that were targeting certain devices that were running Cisco ASA software or Cisco Firepower Threat Defense software to implant malware, execute commands, and potentially exfiltrate data from the compromised devices. Attackers were assessed to have begun testing the exploit as early as July 2023. This attack campaign has been named Arcane Door, although Cisco has not yet identified the initial attack vector, which is kind of scary. They have provided updates that will address software weakness that could allow an attacker to implant malware and obtain persistence on affected devices. Of these weaknesses, CVE 2024-20353 and CVE 2024-20359 were used by the attacker in this campaign. This is definitely highly concerning. So if you have any questions on this or any other questions, please contact Kroll at cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. So let's get into today's briefing. Today, we're going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. AI. Everyone's talking about it, and George has some really good facts on that. MagicDot, get into some GitHub, go into our malware spotlight, and of course, Sarah's going to go through some new ransomware news we're seeing. So with that, George, I'll tell you, every discussion I have about current threats, what to expect, what's going to happen in 2024, 2025, AI always comes up. Will it take over? Are the threat actors using it? Are we using it? Are there going to be robots? Is this going to be something crazy happening? But it seems you actually have an answer today. Can you tell us about that, George?
Yeah, sure, Keith. Maybe not full Skynet yet, but we are absolutely certain, absolutely certain that threat actors are leveraging AI tools. And this week's report covers a number of uses that we've seen, specifically involved in initial access, social engineering, malware development, scripting tools, and we'll keep updating on various other ways that threat actors are using the tool. And this is to sort of bolster some of the reporting that we've been putting out on the Kroll blog as well regarding best practices for AI internally and things like that. So we know that threat actors are using these tools. During some of our investigations, we have seen hands-on evidence that threat actors are using large language models and chatbots to augment their capability, that's specifically during ransomware intrusions. So we know that for a fact. We know that threat actors are definitely using these tools. And to add to that, the recent release of MITRE ATT&CK Framework version 15 actually incorporates new AI-related TTPs, especially for TTPs relating to chatbots and large language models, and that's T1588.007. So how are we seeing threat actors using these tools? Our underground monitoring identified a pretty large increase in discussion of and selling and purchasing access to deepfake and voice cloning tools. A lot of those tools and services are directly designed to aid in phishing campaigns. And indeed, that is something that we here at Crawl are seeing more often. Typically used to bolster SEO spam, those kinds of things. Fairly low-level fraud, but you can obviously imagine how much those kinds of capabilities can go. And of course, there's a bunch of reporting in the news about how deepfakes and voice cloning technology is being used in producing deceptive imagery and so on. So of course, the capability is there. It's extremely cheap to leverage the tool, and threat actors we assess are just going to continue to use this and get better at doing so as well. And of course, it allows the lower skilled actors to obtain a capability that would be not accessible to them. And that is, I think, really the crux of a lot of this tooling is the democratization of these tools. In terms of malware development and scripting, and there's a lot more on this in the report, but I'll just run you through a couple of things that we've seen. We've covered before how threat actors are using tools like WormGPT and FraudGPT, jailbroken versions of popular large language models to build and develop code that can assist them in their attacks. And there's a recent report by Proofpoint, which saw KTA 318, also known as Scully Spider or TA 547, using AI-generated PowerShell scripts. That was their assessment, and you can see an example of that down there on the right-hand side of the screen, probably because it contains such good comments. I don't even think very well-versed development teams comment that well. So that's I think a pretty good giveaway. That threat actor was using these scripts to deliver Radamanthus into organizations in Germany as recent as last month. And I think that just kind of goes to show how quickly these scripts can be developed using these LLM tools and things like chatbots. And I think it's just something that we're going to continue to see. We're of course monitoring it, but I do want to stress that the defensive measures really don't change in this context, in this case, especially as it comes to delivering Radamanthus in this way. The behavioral sort of signatures that we always see and always check for, the various ways that the threat actors may deliver this. It doesn't matter if the code was developed by AI or not. The behavioral detections that we have in place are more than capable of detecting what a threat actor must do in order to gain initial access in this way. But I think it's very important to stay abreast of all of this and understand how it could impact us in the future. And we'll continue to horizon scan on it, and we'll keep reporting on it. But that's all from me today. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to you, Keith. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Yeah, this is something that's going to be top of mind for us. We do have task force and different groups that are looking into this very regularly and updating all our clients and partners. So if you have any questions about this, please contact Kroll. But additionally, we have in-house experts that are looking at deepfakes and doing some great work on that as well. So deepfakes, AI, anything that you think may be vulnerable, you may be vulnerable to or want to learn more about, please contact Kroll, cti@kroll.com. So with that, Dave, I'll tell you, there's some good things going on, right? There's a new technique to hide files in a Windows system, which could cause a major issue in securing the environment. Can you provide us with some details on this vulnerability and what you're seeing?
Yep, certainly. Security researchers at Safe Breach Labs detailed a way of exploiting a known issue with the Windows operating system to hide files and impersonate legitimate processes, which they say could allow attackers to obtain rootkit-like functionality. The exploit relates to a known issue regarding how modern Windows converts different file path formats, specifically the DOS file path format and the NT file path format. The DOS format is the one users are most accustomed to, starting with a drive letter and a colon. The NT format is similar, but starts with an additional component before the drive letter, starts with a slash, and is often used internally in the native API of the core NT DLL library. When a program calls a high-level Windows API function, such as create file, with a DOS path, Windows translates this for use with functions such as NT create file. The issue lies in the conversion. Specifically, the translation removes any trailing period or space characters. This means that if you create a file or directory with a program that understands NT file paths that contains a trailing character, since the conversion does not need to take place, that file will be created on the file system with that character. However, any tools or commands that use DOS paths to access that file won't be able to see them. Furthermore, it allows the attacker to trick some tools into thinking a legitimate process is running by creating a parallel directory structure with a trailing period. Tools that query the path of a malicious process then attempt to pull that binary via a DOS path would get the binary image of the legitimate binary. This ability to misdirect tools as to what is running is a feature being described as rootkit-like by the researchers and can cause incorrect prefetch file data. Kroll CTI performs some testing, and though this technique does well at hiding files, it does not totally hide a malicious process from all aspects of Windows. For example, on a default install of Windows 11, Microsoft Defender performed well detecting malicious processes located in a directory hidden in this manner. The best defense is maintaining a strong defense in desk posture with a good EDR and perimeter scanning tools. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Dave, for the overview. Really appreciate that. Mukesh, over to you. We've seen some vulnerabilities in GitHub before. I think we've seen them a lot, but with as popular as GitHub is and is becoming, the trust that users have in the platform may elevate this vulnerability even more. And really interested in what you're about to tell us here about GitHub. So I'm going to turn over to you, Mukesh.
Oh, thank you, Keith. So is it a vulnerability or is it an intentional design choice? Well, platform that's used by many developers, as you mentioned, which is GitHub and GitLab on a daily basis, has been observed being exploited by malicious actors to spread malware through URLs linked to public repositories. Now, what's particularly concerning about this is that these malicious files that have been uploaded and spread by the malicious actors appear to be legitimate, lending an air of credibility as they come from reputable sources. While most of the activities that has been observed currently are from public Microsoft and Google repositories, any publicly accessible repository on GitHub could be at risk. Recent reports by other security researchers and security firms have highlighted a sophisticated malware loader known as Lua malware, abusing this vulnerability and masquerading seamlessly legitimate, malicious files within legitimate Microsoft GitHub repositories. Now, these files initially are appearing as being authentic. However, when looking into the project files and the source code of Microsoft repositories or any other public repositories, they are not there. The method that actors are using to exploit this vulnerability is by attaching files or multimedia files as well to commits and issues within those public repos, however, not submitting these. However, as soon as a file is uploaded or entered into the commit and issues section of a public repository, it is auto-uploaded into an AWS S3 bucket without the owner of the repository's knowledge. This not only increases the risk of successful attacks, but also raises the question about the platform's security. Additionally, we carried out further testing on to other solutions which utilizes GitHub's core functions, one of this being Microsoft Azure DevOps. Upon testing this vulnerability in DevOps, we identified that it is not currently vulnerable to this exploit as it requires the submission of an issue or a commit for any files being uploaded to the platform. Well, this provides an additional layer of security. Overall, we'd say for all organizations to provide training on clicking on links, as well as making sure that they are aware of all phishing, sort of phishing related malware that's taking place. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. I appreciate that. And I got to tell you, I love the car on here. Magnum PI, Tom Selleck. That was my car growing up. I wanted that so bad. Actually, I wouldn't mind to have it now. So thanks so much for the update. Really do. All right. With that, we're going to turn it over to our Malware Chronicles, Malware Spotlight with Ryan Hicks. Ryan?
Thanks, Keith. So this week we're looking at Quasar, or also known as QUASARRAT. So it's an open source tool for Windows. It was first released quite a while ago on GitHub in 2014, called XRAT. It was rebranded just a year later to Quasar. And the latest release of the tool was published just last year in March, and only recently in March of this year, the repository was archived to a read-only state. So it's still going to be kind of downloaded and used, but it's just sort of as read-only at the moment. It's published and described by the developer on GitHub as an administrative tool, although with the capabilities it provides as a remote access tool, it of course provides the means for threat actors that they can and have used and modified it for their own uses. And a couple of campaigns, there's quite a range of threat actors that have used Quasar, including organized crime as well as nation state level. Just a few here of note: KTA 038 or APT10. They targeted EMEA and APAC regions using Quasar alongside PlugX. We have KTA 082 or Kimsuki, also utilizing Quasar following initial compromise with their Gold Dragon malware. And there's also a number of unattributed threat actors leveraging Quasar surrounding the geopolitics in Russia, Ukraine in 2022 to spread malicious documents that then deployed Quasar. So looking at the tool itself, these sort of techniques, so the following techniques are part of kind of just the standard Quasar build, be it for legitimate or malicious purposes. So there's no real sort of set delivery method for Quasar. It really depends on the threat actor itself that deploys the tool. And as I mentioned just before, there's quite a wide range of actors that have used it. Typically, Quasar is run from the app data directory, unless administrative privileges were obtained. In that case, the program files or sysfile64 directories have also been observed, and those three directories are kind of hard-coded depending on or when the victim executable is created by the server. And upon execution on the victim device, it first gathers host system information, including geolocation and IP address. And on the current release of Quasar, that's achieved through several HTTP GETs requests to the legitimate services, IP whois and IPIFY.com to gather further information. And persistence is achieved fairly sort of standard, really, through either a scheduled task or a registry run key. And then once installed, all the command and control is directed through to the Quasar server, which is the GUI really that the threat actor will use to interact with the victim device. If we just go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. For post-execution, really kind of just a few kind of further actions there, as well as the capabilities I listed. There's a sort of selection of other capabilities available, as you see, of course, available for legitimate remote access use, but like most of these tools, could also be used maliciously. And just like to highlight here at the bottom, even though Quasar is relatively old since first release, we continue to observe overlaps in infrastructure associated with several other remote access tools, including AsyncRat and DCRat. And there was also research conducted by Japan Certs a few years ago, where they identified strong overlaps in the source code between 9 different remote access tools and Quasar. All seem to be sort of stemming from Quasar itself. Some of them have identical cloned source code and configuration, which is kind of where some of the similar sort of IOC overlaps come from, and others have partially copied code, which appears to be the case for async in particular. So something to note really on this last point here is the potential difficulty in identifying and kind of attributing the specific variant in a lot of these remote tool sets where the code is identical, particularly in this kind of Quasar family that has sort of stemmed over the years. And that's all for me. I'll hand back to Keith. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, and looking at this, look at the IOCs. We have some great links that all the data we're coming in from our 3,000 plus cases we get a year. We have that analysis that we can link a lot of these IOCs to certain groups and stuff. So any questions you have, please contact us, cti@kroll.com, or any internal discussion. With that, I'm going to turn over to our in-house expert, Sarah. So Sarah, it's crazy. I'm seeing all kinds of stuff with RAS, the ransomware as a service, and how it's here to stay. And it seems everyone is trying to get a piece of the action for sure. Now, it's not the art it used to be, back early 2010s, 2019 with the transition, but it's extremely effective. Can you elaborate what you're seeing and how this transition is occurring?
Yeah, of course, Keith. So we're starting to see a lot of cheap amateur ransomware builds for sale. So there's various amounts that are pretty inexpensive, and they're independently produced by amateur threat actors or just threat actors who want to work independently, and they are being sold on the dark web. And researchers are kind of dubbing this as calling them junk guns. So like we said, they're cheap, they're amateur builds. Most of the time they're being sold as a one-time purchase compared to some of the other ransomware as a service models that we usually see by prominent ransomware groups. So Lockbit, Black Hat, bigger groups like that. An example of a cheap build that we're seeing is Cryptina. It can be purchased for $20 for a single build, and the threat actor states that it is a complete ransomware as a service toolkit. There is clean web and console interface, customizable payloads, rapid encryption, decryption, support for 32-bit and 64-bit systems, including Linux, support for Monero and Bitcoin wallets. And then they state there's many, many more features along with these builds. So the threat actors that are like selling these types of ransomware, like I said before, usually act independently, and they don't have the massive infrastructure, resources, or a big group of affiliates like the more prominent ransomware groups, like I mentioned before. Sometimes these smaller, cheap builds too, or these threat actors, they're not going to go as far as creating data leak sites, which are pretty common these days now, just for these ransomware groups to post victims. They might not work with initial access brokers or conduct high profile attacks. So on the other side of this is kind of a watch out for smaller businesses, because they shouldn't underestimate these smaller actors or attacks, because they are looking for maybe low profile attacks. So going with this type of method, an individual threat actor, it's appealing for them to not share the profit with a group or rely on others within the group to help carry out the attacks, and doing the low profile attacks themselves are not going to get as much attention on them, so they can just claim the ransom and go on their way. So that's kind of what we're seeing for these cheap builds being sold. And then our next story we have for the Ransomware Roundup is DragonForce. They have been seen utilizing a leaked ransomware builder from Lockbit. So this builder is the Lockbit Black, which is also known as Lockbit 3.0, and this one was released March 2022. So even though the whole Operation Kronos that was carried out by law enforcement did take down some of Lockbit's infrastructure, and this was February of this year, 2024, the Lockbit Black ransomware builder is still out there and available for other threat actors to use in their attacks. So they're able to obtain these and kind of create their own tool set, which is what DragonForce has been using this builder for. So researchers were seeing similarities in the code and functions of the payloads were also discovered between DragonForce and Lockbit's builder. So the researchers stated that the discovery of DragonForce ransomware and its links to the leaked builder of Lockbit Black ransomware underscores the growing threat posed by the abuse of leaked malware building tools and cyber attacks. The accessibility of such tools enables threat actors to customize and deploy ransomware payloads with ease, amplifying the risk landscape for organizations globally. So just stating that even though Lockbit did have their infrastructure taken down and they are still operating some of the affiliates, that this build is still out there for other ransomware threat actors to utilize in their own attacks. And that is all for me, Keith.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the cutting edge intel. Really do appreciate that. So with that, run out of time here. Try to keep it to 30. Today is Little Known Fact Day. I definitely want to say this because it's kind of funny. Did you know that you can actually die from laughing? And a number of people actually have, typically due to intense laughter causing a heart attack or suffocation. So these briefings should come definitely with a warning. I don't want you to go ahead and pass out from that. But with that, yesterday I asked my wife when her birthday was. She said March 1st. So I walk around the kitchen, I ask again. So I can only hope I haven't lost anyone else to laughter. I would like to thank everyone that has taken the time to tune in to Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. We hope you found this session informative. If you have any follow-up questions about this briefing or any other questions, please contact the Kroll team at cti@kroll.com. Again, thank you for all the presenters, and we look forward to speaking to you next week. Hope everyone has a wonderful day.